Um, if we go to 2.5 mil, we talking about what, 380,000 out of fund balance, 380,000, something like that.
Out of fund balance or?
Yeah.
What, yeah, I mean, we could divide that, 743 number in half, and that would be basically what we'd get in revenue, and the rest would have to be made up in fund balance.
And Mr. Taylor, I have another question too, and that is about the roof. I don't get me wrong. I'm not want to add costs, okay, and add money, but I remember you telling me when um, was chair that we had to replace those roofs, and if we look at, there's two roof replacements. So is one of those roofs less expensive than the other?
One is the DSS roof, one is the airport roof. The airport roof, I think, is okay. We could put that off. Yeah, the airport roof's only like $20,000. It's not a big deal. But I think,
You just talking about $20,000?
yeah, that's the airport roof. The other one is the DSS building. That one's the one that we've put off more than.
If we put it off this year, that means we would put it off 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, 3 years, I think. Keith, this is one, Keith Branham, who does all our building maintenance, because we talk with every department about what their critical needs are. This is one, and Ian had another conversation. He said, I can put, cool seal or one of those kind of things on it and patch it one more year. He said, but y'all, next year you're going to have to.
And just for to be very transparent, one of the things I asked you about is the fire department down there on River Road.
Mm-hmm.
Would we have enough trucks to man that department? Did you talk to Mr. Pope?
The plan was there to have trucks in it so you meet ISO. Are they the kind of
No, yeah. Would we have the trucks if the building is built? Since we're not buying fire trucks, if the building is built, will we have the trucks to go into the building?
Not the kind of trucks that you would want. I think you might have the kind of trucks, and what Jason Pope is telling me, that you can have the kind of trucks that meet ISO requirements. But there again, you would need to buy new trucks within a year.
No, but so the question is, and I think we might need Mr. Pope to answer this question. I guess to all of us is, if we decided not to fund that fire station, but agree that we would fund it next time, could you take that money and do something with one of the roof replacements?
Of course, you can transfer money if you would like to do that.
This is just a discussion.
Yeah, right. And that's what the purpose of this whole meeting is. Let's just kick around ideas and discuss what the priorities are, the preferences with what resources we have. The answer is yes, you could do that.
Okay, but the reason I'm asking that question though is since we didn't buy the trucks last year,
Mm-hmm.
and we didn't buy them, we're not gonna buy them this year. So, and I don't know. We need to ask Mr. Pope and let him give us his expertise on what we ought to do.
Okay, we'll have that on the list to do.
Again, that's just a thought and just a discussion item.
I know we have all the engineering done, and I think we have the design work done, but no contracts have been let. That's the one thing I'm trying to run through my head.
It has been let.
No, I don't think it's been let. We have done the site work. We did most of that in-house. We had the engineering done for the site work. Do you all know? I don't think anything has been done. I know we've started the design work, but of course that can sit.
I don't know.
Bit out beyond that I'm aware of.
Now, if the contract is let, decision's already made for us.
Right. I don't think that's the case, but let me go back and check on that specifically.
Again, I want to when Miss Bass and I talked that Tuesday, I think she went home and she couldn't sleep. I went and I couldn't sleep. So I want to thank you all for all the work and that you've put into this. And it's not final yet, but do want to thank you all for the work you've done. And Mr. Caller, those things that we asked you about, and I think Mr. Trapp just asked, we probably need that list too. There's a lot for us to digest. What's the mood of council? What y'all want to do? You want to re-look at some of the stuff with the information Ms. Bass going to send us and Mr. Caller going to send us, and then come back ready to ask specific questions. Um, did we, in your proposals, Ms. Bass, did you make any cuts to the road maintenance or anything?
That's in there.
We did. We reduced here. We've got some supply reduction of about 175.
You cut it by 175, and you only spend 250.
I have to look and see exactly how much we spent. It's more than that.
And this is the common drives.
It's just the general account that material is purchased from, whether it be patching asphalt or rock or whatever.
Because I normally send Mr. Taylor probably a roll, and you smile, Mr. Caller, but I probably send him a roll a week,
Yes, sir.
sometimes two.
Yes.
Our citizens believe that we only have they get two or three things: fixing the road, recycle center, and some recreation. Now they're paying all the bills, so we don't want to be. We got to make some serious cuts here, but we got to think about the people that paying the bills.
We have 400,000 budgeted in that in your book. It's on page 23 of 99.
23 of 99.
Yep. So that would reduce it to 225.
Does that account have a fund balance as well?
That's a general fund account.
Fund account?
What item it is again?
It's on page 23.
Okay, I see that.
5325.01 is
Okay, I
down
see.
near the bottom.
So the cut you proposing, what would that do to us? Since you've been in that department, Mr. Caller.
I think we can just be a little more efficient with the material that we use. And you mentioned common drives. You know, a lot of times we don't have to necessarily put rock on a common drive every time we service it. You know, we can go out and just scrape it and use a lot of the material or rock that's already there. So I think we can just be more efficient that way. And also too, on the longer roads that we service, you know, we've got so many bridges out now, a decent portion of those are closed. So that'll help us save some too there.
Okay. Mr. Trapp asked earlier about positions. Do we have some positions we looking at?
So the positions that Ms. Bass talked about that were included in your budget packet, there no positions were actually funded. These are, or excuse me, filled. These are all vacant positions that is included in your packet. And I'll add too, we've been looking at this, you know, as the year has gone on, we have evaluated the whole year, you know, whether or not we really have to fill them or not. We've scaled back a couple from full-time positions to just part-time positions when people have left. And also we've waited on several to fill them. You know, if we can wait a month or two or whatever, you know, that saves us salary and fringe benefit costs there also. And we've also asked everybody, all department heads, to evaluate if they need them or not. And we have been able to cut some out that way, you know, when people leave, just suspend them and not fill them anymore. I'll talk a little bit about the options that are up there. And again, this is just for council's consideration. If you look at the furlough there, that would be 1 week, of leave without pay, basically. And that's what the cost savings there would be on, wages and fringe benefit costs from, instituting a 1 week furlough.
I'm questioning. One of the things we did in manufacturing is, when we, when we ask people to take those furloughs, because people do that from time to time. If, okay, for instance, if it came your time to take the furlough, especially if you was in the same department, and you, s- and I'm just gonna use Ms. Bass. Ms. Bass said, you know what? We do the same work. She says, I really need to take this week. Can I take it for you and it still count the same? Are we gonna allow that?
That'll just be something we had to evaluate.
Okay.
It'll depend on workload and the employees in the
And people's
department.
skills and that kind of.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
And I would like to give people the option to take it 1 day at a time for the whole fiscal year instead of making them take a whole week at a time. I
Okay.
think that would ease
Okay.
it some too. We also suspended and reduced a lot of temporary personnel funding. And I don't want to really mention all that tonight. If we got specific questions about it, I can answer those, but I will say one of the main ones that is in there is for solid waste, because it would involve the recycling centers, and I know y'all have, talked about that recently. The number that's included there, out of the 482,000, 138,000 of that would be closing the recycling centers for 2 days, 2 12-hour days. So and I'll tell you, it's $70,000 about, it's like $69,000 per 12-hour day that costs us to run the centers, all 11 of them. So that's what the wage cost is there. And as Ann mentioned,
So what days would you be talking about?
I mean, that'll be up for discussion for y'all. I know Sunday was a bad idea.
Yes.
We kicked around Mondays and Wednesdays at this point.
Yeah, we're already closed on Wednesday, well, we cut out the half a day, so it's a whole day Wednesday. I think Monday is probably their slowest day as far as customers coming in, but it's yet the busiest day for the staff to clean up, and I'll say, being in that department, it's hard for those guys to work around people coming in and out and being that busy on Mondays.
Okay.
So I would.
Okay. Any questions? Any other questions? Again, there's a lot for us to digest, but again, there's some good work.
Do y'all want me to go through this overview of the departments and kind of talk about what changed or what went down in each department?
I can do it once we get the other information. We can go through some of it.
You see what I'm saying there?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
You want me to do that? Okay. So that's the long sheet that's, every other line is shaded. All right, everybody got it? So like I said, we really asked everybody at the onset when they came to meet with administration and finance to go ahead and think about what they could cut, and just going through each department. Some had slight increases, most had decreases. Also, as we go through this, keep in mind that retirement went up for everybody. So in really small departments that basically only have salaries, it may show an increase, but it's probably retirement. So just kind of be aware of that. in county administration, we did have a slight increase there. That is related to, of course, retirement, and we have some things in there like our fill-in receptionist, different things like that, that we've had to staff different, and particularly some at the courthouse related to COVID in that department. Finance, we had a reduction of about $11,000. Some of that was related to when the department changed and different people came in, and I think we have some people at lower salaries. Human resources, we had a reduction there. I think that's probably supplies, a lot of safety supplies and office supply. A lot of these are kind of nickel and diamond supplies and that kind of thing. Purchasing, we had a 19% decrease there, and that department was restructured. I guess about a year ago, maybe a little more. They show up still as a separate department, but they're now a part of finance. So we don't have a department director. We have like a department manager and an office person. Data processing, we've got a slight decrease, and again, that's just related to supplies and equipment needed in various departments and trying to squeeze that down as much as possible. Our general operating, our Department 008, we had a big increase, but like I told you earlier, those are like workers' comp, our P&L, some of those big items that hit in that account that drive that up. Our tax assessor had a decrease. Trying to even think of what went down there.
Position suspended.
Okay,
That was a full-time position suspended.
yeah. Did you have a question, Ms. Green? I thought you were asking something. Our delinquent tax collector went down, and that was kind of shifting how they do the tax sale. I think this year, just because of some different COVID-related closures and things, we used a service which proved to be a good option. And so that helped reduce some of the expense and simplify that process. So there's a decrease there. Building maintenance, it had a little bit of an increase, and that's a pretty big department. So it had about a 2% increase there. And that's just related to the ongoing maintenance and supplies of the buildings. Community development, we had a big increase, 16%, I'm sorry, big decrease, a 16% decrease. There's an unfunded position there. And we had been budgeting some engineering in that department, just for general type stuff, which we actually have budgeted in our general operating. So we just removed that from community development altogether and left that in general operating. Vehicle maintenance, we have
Question, Ms. Bass, I'm sorry.
yes, sir.
On community development,
Yes.
the engineering, we had an engineer as a salaried position?
No, sir. Some contract, some service engineering, we had budgeted there for just projects. But we also have that budgeted in general operating. So we just moved it all into general operating instead of having it split between two departments.
Okay, and the unfunded position, what position was that?
I believe that is a code enforcement officer. We had budgeted it for this year, actually for only 6 months of the year. We were kind of trying to push it off, and we made it this far, so we did not fund it for the next year either. Vehicle maintenance is an unfunded position. Economic development, I think that is also related to some of our services like engineering and professional services. We reduced. Detention center, we
Another
reduced.
question.
Yes, sir.
The economic development, we just lost a person out of there, so will that be funded?
It is not funded. Any vacancy, I mean, that happened at the time this was done, was not funded. Detention center, I think they have 2 unfunded officers right now that are vacant. Road maintenance, we have an unfunded driver.
Go back to the detention center.
Yes, sir.
But now they have certain requirements about the number of people they gotta have.
I think we're able to meet the requirements.
Okay.
And this decrease actually includes the requirement of the cook being full-time. So that is a net decrease in the whole department. Road maintenance, again, we have unfunded position and just going through their supplies, you know, trying to bring that down as much as possible. Solid waste had tiny little increase, but that would be, we had a lot of decreases within supplies but also retirement went up a little bit. So I think we ended up with a little bit of a net increase. Animal control, we talked about, it went up slightly, but we should get some donations to help offset some of that. The probate judge, it went up slightly. And this is one of those departments that has such a small staff. Really all they are is people. And so retirement is going to show up there. And also she needs to add a cabinet for where she has to store, you know, permanent documents. She's running out of space there. Tax auditor, again, that's just a slight increase, and I think that's totally attributed to retirement. The treasurer had a little bit of a decrease. And again, that's just kind of looking at what we're budgeting. She uses sometimes some temporary help. So just kind of constricting some of that. The clerk of court had a little bit of a decrease. The coroner had an increase. They added the office assistant is also a deputy coroner, and that has not always been in the past. So that employee also gets that stipend. And this was the coroner's second term, and so I think we equalized that salary back up. The sheriff's office, it's gotten an increase in here, and this is one of the areas in some of our recommended decreases outside of what's here that will go down. That's where we kind of went through and combed through some roles, positions that may have been in the budget that are not filled, that we think we cannot fund. So that's part of what's in these options. The SROs, the next two, the main SRO contract is with the Fairfield County School District, and then the STEM school also got a grant this year to fund that. Both of those show up here in our general fund, but we receive reimbursement from both schools to offset those. So we have contract revenue budgeted at exactly these amounts to offset that. Our voter registration and elections had a pretty significant decrease, but we were able to reduce our election staff, like our poll workers, down because there's not a major election this year. So that's just going to fluctuate every couple years depending on what kind of elections we have. DSS had a slight decrease. Veterans Affairs, it has a little bit of an increase, and that office right now, I guess we've got the director's salary. That is one vacancy we do have budgeted because it only has a director and an assistant, which is appointed. That director's been vacant. It's been vacant for a while, so we may could get some guidance, you know, from our delegation on if we're going to reappoint that or not. But it is funded right now, but that kind of comes down from them. And that slight increase is probably just related to retirement for those two positions. The airport has a bit of a decrease. And again, just trying to kind of tighten up there on supplies and things. Emergency management, they went down, and we have we have a vacant telecommunicator, and we did not fund one of those. And then some other decreases within the department. The county allocations, this department 100-035, this is where our allocations, where we have this supplemental sheet are. So they're budgeted in there at the request that's on that sheet, but this is also one of the areas that is opportunity to maybe reduce that down. Our parks and recreation, we've got a decrease there. Again, we've got unfunded position. Our general fund distribution, that obviously is way down because we're not having to make any transfers out to our capital funds. Our transit department, this looks a little bit different. Transit does get a lot of funding from a grant, and they've always been budgeted in Fund 206. But last year, probably about February of 20, in one of their annual reviews, DOT wants to see just in that Fund 206 match up with exactly the money that they give us in grants. So we had to actually move the remainder of that department up in the general fund. So that's where that is. And it is new. The portion that's funded by the grant is still in 206. We also were able to add some revenue though, because they do get, they can file with Medicaid for some of their routes and stuff. So that revenue is also budgeted in general fund. Our EMS, we've got a decrease of about 430,000. And a lot of that is just unfunded positions. They've got a couple vacancies and we reduced their temp budget. The next group, all these little individual fire departments, they're basically all the same. You see a few of them I squeezed down. Basically, I squeezed down the utilities in the fire departments I could to budget utilities for the new fire station. So that should be no change in total, but you will see some ups and downs within those individual fire departments. But the one to look at is the 100-102-021, which is on the second page. And there is a bit of an increase there, which I think we have in some of these options, reducing some of that temporary money back out of that department. So that's in there for the first reading, but, up here for discussion to remove. And again, the remainder of those little decreases, and then you see the River Road Fire Station where I've put some money that, was able to squeeze out of the other fire departments to fund that for utilities. The museum is basically flat. That's totally attributed to retirement on the employees. And soil and water conservation, the same thing. That's only gone up by retirement. And that's all the general fund departments. So overall, in the total general fund, we've got a net decrease of about 6.61%. Do y'all want me to keep going through the special revenue funds? Do y'all want to pause there and ask any questions?
Yes, continue.
Keep going? Okay. The next two we'll kind of talk about together, 201 and 202. Those are our tourism promotion and tourism related that we get our state accommodations taxes. And this is where we usually fund the Old English District, we fund the Railroad Museum and the Chamber of Commerce. And this is one of the areas also where I think we can take like our own website
Probably gonna get out again.
out of general fund and move that expense down here, which was about 67,000, and kind of fund our own promotion. It doesn't have to be an outside agency. The Sheriff Child Support Fund 205, that's in where they have an employee that has not been filled. It's been a vacancy for a while. We had an employee that was an employee of the Sheriff's Department was kind of filling that role also, and it's budgeted, but it is vacant at this time, but it is in a special revenue fund. Yes, sir.
Only reason I want to stop because I got a question unrelated to this, but please forgive me, okay?
Okay.
One of the things, Mr. Taylor, from the rescue plan, are we gonna get some money from it? From the federal rescue plan?
I think it's going to be 4.2 million, if I'm not mistaken, or right there in that neighborhood, with I think 2 million, 2.1 million distributed each year. We don't know the details of it yet, as far as how it can be spent. And there's some things that do concern us with that, because we had things up here like with furloughs. Sometimes when you get that money, you can't do those kind of things. They make you keep your staff whole. So there's issues like that we have to understand.
But if we get it, we wouldn't have to furlough if it could be used for that.
That's correct. Or you could fund a fire truck or what have you out of it, hopefully, but we just don't know the details yet. They've released numbers but that's all we've got, unless something, do y'all know anything else that's come down recently?
No,
Yep.
I saw an email this morning where I guess the National Association of Counties had polled, I guess, the individual state association of counties and gotten a list of questions basically concerning just that. What can it be used for? What are the restrictions? I think it was about a 5-page, list of things that they have submitted to try to find out the answers to these questions, but I haven't seen any. I think that letter was just submitted, in the last couple of days.
Okay, and the other part of that, is there, you used to look at the one-time money coming from the state that Senator Fannin talked about?
We put together a request again for the fire, to cover the cost of the fire station and the fire truck is what we're looking at primarily, along with some potential park projects.
Okay, all right.
Okay. The next group, it's a group of about 6 accounts. They're all Fund 206. This is the portion of transit that is funded by the South Carolina Department of Transportation. So if you just you can look at those together. She has a capital request in there of 210. It should be funded entirely by grants. If it is, of course, we would purchase it. If it's not, we wouldn't purchase it unless it was funded. But that's what that 210 is in there. Coming on down to Fund 210 and 211, we can kind of look at those together. They're also grant funds for used oil and tire recycling. And we usually get these every year, and we're able to do some different projects within the solid waste department for those two. The railroad track maintenance, we fund that for $15,000 each year, and that's just, I think the intent behind that is to actually build up some fund balance, so when they need a track repair or something needs to be done, that money's already there to do that.
We'll just add, we will need to do that this year because we're working with them. M. Lilly is wanting to start using rail cars, and so we're gonna have to upgrade that. So they may actually,
Right.
I don't know what they have in that fund, but they may need to come back to us to make sure, or we can go to the state to see if we can get the funds to upgrade that track. But that is something that's gonna be used.
Oh, there was something in the contract we discussed.
There is. There's some, and we give them this money and they hold it. And the intent of us giving this money is to maintain that track so
Yeah.
those, it could be
It
used,
can be used, yeah.
to serve what was the Mack truck site.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm sorry.
No problem. The clerk of court, the 4D money, again, that all is special revenue that comes in. I think it's all related to the child support, and that funds a position. But that's totally funded by special revenue. Our Victims Assistance Fund, that is also a position that is funded by magistrate court fines and fees. Our Vehicle Replacement Fund, of course, we didn't budget anything there this year. Our Capital Improvement Fund of 175, that is 125 for the culvert bridge we discussed, and about 50,000 of just general things. Our special revenue tariff money, that is all tariff money related to 911. It's usually pretty restricted in what it can be used for. But that money comes in, and it's related basically to the actual telecommunicators, their console and workstation. It's pretty specific to their job. Our Workforce Development Department, it's grant funded. Those are about the next 241, and there are a couple sub-departments, but that is all grant funded. And it is going up, but that is because there's anticipation that there will be additional grant revenue. If the revenue doesn't go up, the expenses won't go up. Coming on down, we've got some special planning grants. We have a $50,000 for a regional planning grant, solid waste collection grant. Those are estimates. And again, if we don't get these grants, we don't spend it. The same with the Sheriff's JAG grant. The Fairfield Forward program, that's funded by the Duke Endowment. And that is 100% funded by them. I think we have some small in-kind costs like office space and things like that. The Fund 266, the medical facilities, this is the medical buildings around the hospital. We actually rent those out, and so we collect revenue to offset those expenses, but this would be the cost of maintaining those buildings. The next two, 301, one went to zero and one picked up, but that's the payment of one bond and the next one coming in.
But also in this one is the rent for Mount Zion.
No,
Okay.
the rent for Mount Zion is in the general fund.
So the one you're looking at right here is the $24 million one?
Yes, the 301-092, that's the payment that we'll be making. The GOB bond is now paid off.
Okay, but that went up 424%. And so what's in it again?
Well, the percentage is kind of off because we've paid out so little on that. If you look at, I'm hearing an echo here. I'm sorry. It's kind of distracting. We had, in the previous year, had budgeted 241. If you look at the two together, the GOB bond, we were paying $1.6 million. The IPRB bond, we were paying 241. The $1.6 million went to zero, and the IPRB went to $1.2.6 million. So it really, together, they only went up by about $20,000. Everybody good?
So that's the minimum that you have to pay on that, the 1,263,000?
Those will be the payments due. There's one due in September and one due in February. So September of 21, February of 22, which will be in this fiscal year, those payments will be due. The building contingency fund, that 530, that's the two roof replacements we've discussed. I think 500,000 is for DSS, 30,000 is for the airport. The Walter B. Industrial Park, that 10,009.
Taking that out.
That's one of the options. These are things that are built in the number in the first reading outside of these options. The Walter Brown Industrial Park, that's just minimal for the maintenance of the grounds and lighting. Let's see what's next. The Walter B. Spec Building, that is where we are budgeting, like we sold the spec building we have, and this is to budget some grading for a new spec development. The Old Castle, which is also in that same park, that is for the detention pond, which I think is a part of their contract. Moving on, the county road program 409, this is where our road fee comes in, and of course we can use that money to help fix county maintained roads. The water sewer project, it went to zero. That was the purchase of the land. We won't have to do that again. 413 and 414, these are also capital project funds for public works and solid waste, and we didn't budget any capital expenditures there. And the speculative development, this is where we're getting grant money in for that development. It goes in combination with the Walter Brown. So I'm gonna try to explain this. Y'all follow me. Under 406, the Walter B. Brown is where we sold the spec building, and that money resides. We're getting grant money to redevelop another speculative. So we've got to transfer that money out and bring that revenue into this 416 to match up with that grant money for that speculative development.
How much is the grant funds?
I think the grant portion, that's about 660,000, and we want to use that 751 part of the proceeds from the sale of the spec building to go with that grant money.
Mr. Taylor, excuse me, now one of the things we're talking about doing here is trying to find a developer to help us try to build something so we can have some product for industry.
Right, correct. There's a process that a lot of counties use is where you partner with a private developer. You provide the land, they come in, build the building, and essentially the county kind of totes the interest rate on it for a while until it's sold. So that's a cheaper way for a county to get in another spec building built in its county to market. I think we have, is it 3 grants? Essentially, it's $300,000 and a $60,000 grant to go toward the grading.
Mhm.
Does that
Bev-
count?
I was gonna say Beverly probably answer that.
Right, I think that's what it is. And then we had some money from the sale of the spec building that we had to roll back over or either give it back because there was grant money in the spec building also. So all that money does need to go toward the development of grading a site and trying to pursue a new spec building. It's not enough money to do all that. So what you're suggesting is something we're looking at and I think a good route to potentially go.
And this is the because we had done that, that's what we was talking about the other day, right? We didn't get as much money as we thought we did for the spec bill.
Right, because back sometime, I think it was in 2012, what we had the spec building recorded as on the books, the value of that as an asset, we had to have an appraisal done periodically so we can be sure we're recording that at a good market value. And it came in lower than what we had. So we had to take a loss when we actually sold that building. On the books. I mean, we still got the $2.1 million, but
In real cash, we did not.
yes, we really got the money, but
Right.
but in revenues and expenses, we had to, the value of the asset was not what we had thought. And then the last two are the general fund hospital emergency. That is where we pay the hospital out of that fund 507. And like I said before, 507 generates, it has its own millage and it generates that $1 million. The library, their cost of operations has gone up the last several years, and they've also kind of had to dip in to their fund balance. We collect taxes on their behalf, and we give them an allocation quarterly. And then it bills the fund balance in this 801, which still belongs to them. The last maybe 3 years, they've had to kind of dip into that. And it's getting to a point where they have requested a millage increase, and that would take them up to about 706. And that would put them back in a spot where they probably would not have to have request a millage for, probably 5 or more years again.
Let's stop 1 second. I guess, when we come back, to me, we got several decisions, to make. One of them is, they've laid out some expense, decreases, and they also laid out, a millage increase. So we're gonna have to talk about that at some point to see whether we want to do that. But again, so, and I guess we can look at all these things, because that's why I want you to send it to us.
Mhm.
I'm sorry. So, because, as we get ready to make these decisions, we just have the information.
Okay. I think, if I may, we had all the special revenue funds kind of on the schedule for the next work session, but we really just went through those. So maybe for that next work session, if y'all want to get us all your questions, and then we can just really focus on getting you the information and the answers you need for that next work session. And that may be a good approach to take, since we already covered special revenue.
And to be really frank with you, we've gone over a lot of information here tonight, so it's been a really good meeting. So again, thank you.
Do we still have matching funds in the account for county, not counties, but municipalities?
We do have, I think it's 25 or 50,000 that we have kind of a grant match for a municipality if something came up. And again, that's one of those things that we could could take out and come back, if the need came with a request of action.
I know it's nickel and diamond, but
Yeah.
That's the level we're at though. It's
Yeah.
nickel and dime, and we are scrounging for every, like I said, nickel and dime. And I do kind of like the idea that is one we may put back in and do the request of action. Cause
Yeah.
it would be terrible to be in a position where we, had a grant we could potentially get or an industry we could get and we didn't have the money to match it. So we have to be able to have money. But again, come back with a request of action. And we do have some other funds, the sale of property, which we have not, I don't think, hospital and things like that we've addressed yet,
Yeah.
that may come through. And again, we need to find out what the details are on this rescue money. So,
Okay, and also some of the county property. Did you just talk about that? I might not hear you.
have some of that, the sale of
Yeah.
the forfeited land trust
Mhm.
and things such as the old behavioral health building. Some of those things we do already have in here, but the hospital, which has just come on the radar with us, is not in here yet. And we have
One of the things, we want to try to think about, this year, next year, is how we do a community development block grant, for the upfit or weatherization of homes. We've talked about that several years. I know we probably don't have the money right now, but as we get some money, we need to think about how we can, I guess, get a, community development block grant so we can do some houses, upfit, weatherization type thing.
Ms. Mosey, do you know the schedule on those? Because they have that schedule, and sometimes they have that in a year, and sometimes they don't. They skip a year with that. Do you know the details on the weatherization and stabilization?
No, sir, I'm not familiar with the weatherization.
That's one of those things. With CDBG, they have cycles. Utilities usually come around pretty regularly. Sometimes they will skip a cycle for things such as libraries or fire stations or weatherization. We can check on that and get you an answer.
Do we have any? You good?
Yeah.
Is Mr. Robinson, you have anything?
No, sir.
Mr. Gilbert,
No, sir.
Ms. Green?
Nope.
Mr. Roseborough? Mr. Trapp? I tell you again, let me, say thank you again to the staff. I know we had a lot of discussions and all that kind of stuff, but, and probably got a little aggravated with me and all that kind of stuff, but I tell you what, you all have really done some really good work, to put us where we are, and so we got a lot of things to think about. So, again, we got some decision points we got to make on next time. And I don't know, and we'll talk about how we do that, a little bit later. But, it's some good work, and I just want to say thank you. Now, another thing is that, we didn't know how long we was gonna be here tonight. And, Ms. Davis has, ordered, food for us. So one of the things that she has done is go ahead, and I think she's packing the box. So what we can do is, just pick up a box and we can go on home with the box we pick up. Okay? And if nothing else, Mr. Taylor, you have anything you want to say before we leave here tonight?
No, I think I'm good. But if you have any questions, please get the questions to us so we can have the information by the next meeting.
Okay, and I think, you, Brad, I think, Mr. Call, I think you had some go-tos, so, and, okay. If nothing else, again, I know I've said that a couple of times, but again, thanks.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman?
Second,
It's been moved and second that we stand in adjournment. All in favor, aye.
I
Opposes, nay. So we now stand adjourned.